don't take sides. We analyze using verified sources and let you decide.
That is the foundation of everything we do here. We isolate the verified data from all the noise, we look at the historical precedents, and we leave the politics completely out of the room.
Exactly. And I want to jump right in today because I was looking through your notes on a very specific and honestly fascinating military strategy theory.
The 10-day theory.
Right. It essentially argues that the first 10 days of a modern war reveal, well, almost everything about how the rest of that conflict is going to play out. And at first glance, that sounds impossible, right? Wars can drag on for a decade.
They can. But if you look closely at the historical data, the opening moves really do set an unbreakable pattern.
Why is that? Why the first 10 days?
Because the fog of war is incredibly thick in the beginning. You have governments issuing endless propaganda, right? Saying what they're going to do, how invincible they are. But in those first 10 days, the masks inevitably slip.
Because they actually have to fight.
Exactly. You stop looking at what a nation claims it will do, and you're forced to look at what its military architecture is actually capable of executing. The initial strikes,
Yeah.
the logistical failures, the speed of the enemy's response, it all creates a permanent map.
And that brings us to the verified data we are analyzing today. Because we are now officially past the first 10 days of the U.S.-Iran war.
We are. The initial shockwave has passed. Both sides have committed to their opening strategies. We have the hard facts on the ground now.
Which means the map is readable. So today, in our 8th deep dive, we are applying that 10-day theory to the facts. And when I was looking through your research, I noticed you applied a specific game theory framework called the escalation ladder to the events of the past week and a half.
I did, yes.
And the conclusion the data points to is, well, it's honestly staggering.
It is. The math is very cold, and it leads to a very specific destination. By running the verified events of the last 10 days through this escalation ladder, we can prove two major things. First,
Prepare yourself for this one.
injecting U.S. ground troops into this conflict is mathematically inevitable.
That is a massive statement. Ground troops are inevitable.
It's a mathematical certainty based on the asset depletion rates we are currently tracking. And second, despite the intense rumors circulating right now, we can prove that nuclear weapons will not be used.
We are going to unpack the mechanics of global military strategy, international supply chains, and military economics to show you exactly how we arrived at those two conclusions. But to understand the complex geopolitics of the escalation ladder, you provided this brilliant, highly distilled analogy.
Right.
We can explain this entire global dynamic by looking at a schoolyard cafeteria.
Because the psychology of power scales perfectly. It's the same on a playground as it is in the Pentagon. So imagine you are sitting in a middle school cafeteria. There's a bully, the biggest kid in the school, and his gang of 4 friends.
The lieutenants.
Right, the lieutenants. They run the room, and they charge a strict $1 tax for any kid who wants to sit and eat their lunch.
And for a long time, the cafeteria just accepts this equilibrium. The tax is annoying, obviously, but the bully keeps the peace. The rules are predictable. You pay the dollar, you eat, nobody bothers you.
Exactly. But power corrupts. The bully eventually gets arrogant. He raises the tax to $2. He even starts shortchanging his own friends to keep more for himself.
So the cafeteria is unhappy, but fear keeps everyone perfectly silent. They are just waiting for someone else to take the risk.
And then a new kid arrives.
The disruptor.
The new kid doesn't know the rules or just doesn't care. He flat out refuses to pay the tax. He ignores the lieutenants. He completely ignores the social pressure.
So what happens? The bully's friends try to ostracize him. They make him sit alone. They curse at him. And he completely ignores them. He sits there eating his lunch.
And this is where the psychology of the room shifts. The entire cafeteria is watching this new kid. The illusion of the bully's absolute control starts to fracture. The other kids realize defiance is actually survivable.
They start secretly smiling at him, maybe offering him a snack.
Right. And even the bully's friends start wondering if the boss is weak. Or maybe if this new kid should be the boss. So the bully is forced to react to save his reputation. He walks over, he's furious, and he punches the new kid.
A physical fight breaks out.
Yes. And because the bully is physically massive, he wins the physical fight. He leaves the new kid bleeding on the floor.
So the bully assumes he won. He brushed off his hands and thinks, problem solved. But looking at the psychology of the room, he actually lost everything.
He lost the cafeteria.
Exactly. Because everyone just watched the biggest kid in school struggle. They saw him get frustrated. They saw that he isn't invincible. The math clicks for everyone sitting at those tables. If one kid can disrupt the boss, 50 kids standing up at once can easily dismantle him.
And this illustrates the crucial difference between dominance and control.
Which is everything in this deep dive.
Right. The bully has dominance. That just means physical size and raw strength. But the new kid had control. He chose the timing of the confrontation. He chose the location. He willingly absorbed the physical damage to achieve a highly specific, strategic goal, exposing the bully's vulnerability to all the spectators.
Control beats dominance. Every single time.
Every time.
The timing and the narrative are far more powerful than just the size of the weapon you're holding.
So I want you to keep that dynamic in mind. We are taking that exact psychology and scaling it up to the framework of the escalation ladder.
Let's transition from the playground to the military strategy. What exactly is the escalation ladder?
It maps out how conflicts grow from minor friction to total war. Because conflicts never jump instantly to maximum violence. They climb, rung by rung.
It's like a street fight. If two people bump into each other on a sidewalk, step 1 is a verbal disagreement. Step 2 is trading insults. Step 3 is a physical shove. Step 4 is throwing a punch. Step 5 is drawing a knife. Step 6 is pulling a gun. You escalate sequentially.
And the most critical rule of this entire framework, the iron rule of escalation, is that you cannot skip steps.
You can't just jump from a verbal disagreement straight to pulling a gun.
No. Because jumping straight from an insult to a firearm breaks human psychology. You lack the internal and external justification for that extreme leap. You need each rung to support the weight of the next.
You need the shove to justify the punch.
Exactly. You need the punch to justify pulling the knife. And you have to remember, you are never climbing this ladder in a vacuum. There are always spectators evaluating your justification.
Going back to the street fight, the spectators are the bystanders pulling out their phones to record it. Later, it will be the police reviewing that footage to determine who escalated disproportionately.
Right. And for many military forces, particularly religious ones, the ultimate spectator is God. They believe they will be judged on whether their violence was justified and calibrated, or if it was simply unhinged murder.
So what pushes people up this ladder?
3 drivers: emotions, the desire to project power, and cold logic. And the combatant, who stays perfectly calm, like that new kid in the cafeteria, retains 3 massive advantages.
Focus, clarity, and resolve.
Yes, focus, meaning they know their actual goal. Clarity, knowing exactly how to get there. And resolve, the determination to finish the sequence and absorb damage without panicking.
So calibration strategic timing beats the bigger weapon. Control over the latter beats sheer dominance. Let's take this exact framework and apply it to where the United States is right now.
Let's walk up America's ladder over the last 10 days. Step 1 is decapitation. The opening move of the U.S. was targeting the supreme leader and the highest level command structures of the Iranian military.
And taking off the head of the snake.
Exactly. But looking at the verified combat data from military journals like Breaking Defense and Critical Threats, that decapitation strike completely failed to halt operations.
Why did it fail?
Because modern asymmetric militaries do not use top-down, centralized command structures, the Quads Force, the broader IRGC. They operate on highly decentralized autonomous networks. When the central communications hub goes dark in Tehran, the local commanders in the field don't wait for orders.
They already know what to do.
Right. They execute pre-planned operations entirely on their own. You simply cannot decapitate a network that doesn't rely on its head.
So the U.S. realizes step 1 failed. They are forced to step up to rung 2. Hitting military targets. The air campaign shifts focus. They start targeting air defense batteries, bases, missile silos.
But again, the data shows this is failing to neutralize the threat. We are talking about assets buried incredibly deep inside the Zagros Mountains.
And Iran has been building those for decades, right?
Decades. Boring tunnel networks through solid rock, specifically to withstand American bunker-busting munitions. Furthermore, they utilize highly sophisticated decoy networks.
So the U.S. is bombing empty mountain ridges.
And fiberglass mock-ups, expending massive amounts of U.S. ordnance with zero strategic yield.
The resistance continues. So step 1 fails, step 2 fails. The U.S. is forced up to step 3, the economic embargo. The strategy pivots to starving the government of capital, naval blockades, stopping trade.
And yet it failed to stop the resistance.
Because Iran is used to it, they've operated under massive economic sanctions for 40 years.
Yeah.
They have this incredibly complex, fully insulated shadow economy.
Exactly. They bypass standard global banking entirely, trying to suddenly choke out an economy that is already built to survive completely outside the system. It just doesn't work on a 10-day timeline.
So that brings us to the verified reality of today. Step 1, 2, and 3 failed. We are now at step 4, attacking civilian infrastructure.
Which is where things get incredibly dark. We are talking about water systems, power grids, oil facilities. We saw this execute clearly with the verified Israeli strikes on the Tehran oil depot.
The footage of that is just, it's staggering. It's an urban center with millions of people suddenly covered in this immense cloud of toxic black smoke.
And it is vital to point out here that attacking civilian infrastructure is a direct violation of international law. The laws of armed conflict strictly forbid targeting civilian survival systems. But within the brutal logic of the escalation ladder, this is the natural consequence.
Because previous steps failed.
Right. When military strikes fail and economic blockades fail, a military command feels intense pressure to simply hit something that hurts.
Like the angry bully finally just throwing a wild punch. So looking up the ladder, what is left for the U.S.?
Well, step 5 would be secret or terrifying new weapons. Step 6 is biological and chemical warfare. And step 7 is the deployment of nuclear weapons.
Good! And this is the key to everything you're listening to right now. We're only at step 4.
Yes. And because you cannot skip steps, nuclear weapons step 7 are absolutely not on the table yet.
We're going to dig deeper into exactly why nukes won't be used in a few minutes. But I want to take a brief pause here. Providing this level of independent, verified analysis, stripping away all the propaganda, it takes immense effort.
It does. We spend our time cross-referencing military journals, logistical data, so you can actually see the board clearly.
And if you value that, if you want to understand where the world is actually heading without the political spin, we highly encourage you to support this deep dive at buymeacoffee.com and of the world. Your support is literally the only thing that keeps this analysis completely independent. You can also find the audio versions of our work on YouTube if you prefer listening there.
Okay, let's pivot. We've analyzed America's position on the ladder. Now we need to examine Iran's ladder.
Because it looks entirely different. It's not the same set of rungs at all.
Not at all. Let's look at Iran's opening moves. Step 1 was targeting U.S. radar and air defenses.
Blinding the enemy.
Exactly. If you blind the optical sensors, the U.S. cannot track incoming threats. But step two is the true fulcrum of this entire war.
Closing the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes. And we need to unpack the massive global impact of that strait. It dictates the entire global economy. You see, you do not need to sink a massive aircraft carrier to close that choke point.
You just need to scare the insurance company.
Precisely. The moment commercial shipping insurance syndicates in London refuse to underwrite supertankers entering the Gulf, the strait is effectively closed.
And the cascading effects of that are immediate. Verified maritime data shows that China imports roughly 40% of its entire crude oil supply through that one single choke point.
And Japan relies on it for 75% of its oil.
75%. I mean, the Japanese prime minister just recently stated that under a total blockade scenario, Japan's strategic reserves run dry in 8 to 9 months. Imagine that. The third largest economy on the planet completely running out of energy in under a year.
It's terrifying.
So Iran closes the strait. Now let's look at their tit-for-tat escalation. How do they respond when the U.S. moves up a rung?
If the U.S. hits the Iranian economy, Iran responds by targeting the economic engines of U.S. allies. They hit the sprawling oil fields of neighboring Gulf states.
And when the U.S. hits civilian infrastructure like that Tehran oil depot we talked about, what is Iran's step 4?
Iran targets the Gulf's ultimate vulnerability: coastal desalination plants.
The plants that make ocean water drinkable. Because these Gulf cities are hyper-modern, but they are built in the middle of a desert.
They have virtually no natural fresh water. The entire survival of these populations relies on these massive industrial plants sitting completely exposed on the coastline.
So if a drone swarm hits those plants,
millions of people suddenly have no drinking water. It's a humanitarian catastrophe that forces immediate political capitulation.
But here's the thing. Iran's ladder stops there. They don't have a step 5, 6, or 7. They don't have nukes or ICBMs. So doesn't America have escalation dominance?
Yes, America has dominance. They own the bigger weapons. But dominance is the wrong metric here. Remember the cafeteria. Dominance is just physical size. Iran has escalation control.
Control beats dominance.
Always.
Okay.
America's strategy right now is a blunt instrument. Destroy Iran is vague. Does it mean regime change? Does it mean starvation?
Mhm.
Because the goal is vague, the application of force is reactive and sloppy.
While Iran's strategy is highly specific.
Crystal clear. Control the Strait of Hormuz, force the U.S. out of the region. Because their goal is clear, they possess strategic flexibility. They can heavily calibrate their actions.
Meaning they can pick and choose who passes through the strait. They can charge a tax. They can let China through unharmed while punishing U.S. allies.
Exactly. Iran is the active player. They're setting the tempo. America is the passive player, forced to just blindly punch back like the bully, just to maintain credibility.
So that's the escalation ladder. But to really understand why we said ground troops are mathematically inevitable, we need to introduce a second framework, the cost pyramid.
This is the foundational architecture of military economics. Every normal war of attrition is built on a standard cost pyramid.
Explain the standard pyramid.
The bottom, the widest part of the pyramid is cheap, highly replenishable assets. Historically, this is infantry, soldiers on the ground. You outfit them cheaply, you have lots of them.
They form the base.
Right, the next level up is armor, tanks, mobile artillery, more expensive so you have fewer of them. Above that is naval power, submarines, carriers.
Huge investments.
And at the very top, the tiny, narrow point of the pyramid is extremely expensive, rare air power. Stealth fighters, advanced bombers. You build a war around the cheap, replenishable stuff at the bottom.
America's pyramid is different.
America has completely inverted the pyramid.
They flipped it upside down.
Yes. For decades, the Pentagon has prioritized air power above all else. So the widest part of their pyramid, their biggest focus, is the most fragile, unreplenishable, and expensive technology on Earth. Next is naval, then armor, with soldiers down at the very narrow point.
So what happens when you fight a war with an upside-down pyramid?
The math is brutal. If you fight upside down, you must win in 2 days.
48 hours.
Because if the war drags on, you begin burning through unreplenishable, ultra-expensive assets that your industrial base simply cannot replace fast enough.
Why did the U.S. think this would work? Why build an upside-down pyramid?
Because they drew the wrong lessons from the 1991 Gulf War and the 2003 Iraq War. They looked at those conflicts and thought, air power alone wins wars flawlessly.
But those weren't real peer-to-peer wars.
Not at all. Iraq had virtually no integrated air defenses. It was essentially a video game for American pilots. They flew at high altitudes and dropped precision munitions uncontested.
But Iran is a real war.
Iran has the Zagros Mountains for cover. They have advanced missiles. And most importantly, they have dirt-cheap drones.
Let's talk about the math of those drones, because this is where the U.S. military budget just implodes.
Okay, let's look at Iran's Shahed drones. It's basically a flying fiberglass lawnmower packed with explosives. The verified unit cost is roughly $35,000.
35 grand, the price of a modish car.
Now compare that to the U.S. defense against it. The U.S. relies on the THAAD missile interceptor system. It's an incredible piece of technology.
Hitting a bullet with a bullet.
Exactly. But the cost of a single THAAD interceptor is over $1 million.
So to shoot down a $35,000 drone,
You have to fire a $1 million missile. And Iran doesn't fire just one drone. They fire swarms. They are willingly trading $35,000 to force the U.S. to burn millions of dollars of exquisite inventory.
and the U.S. can't just print my-own missiles, right?
No. The supply chains for the microelectronics take months, if not years. You cannot use a $1 million missile against a cheap drone forever. The asset pool goes bankrupt.
Which brings us to the inevitable conclusion.
The math will force America to flip the pyramid back to normal. When the interceptors run dry, they have to shift the financial burden. They must put boots on the ground to physically hold territory and dismantle the launch sites.
Ground troops are mathematically inevitable.
They are.
Which is heavy. But it leads us right to the other massive conclusion we promised to explain. The elephant in the room. Why nuclear weapons won't be used.
There are intense rumors right now about an Israeli nuclear strike on Iran to end this quickly. We can rule this out immediately. First, obviously, there is the World War II taboo. Breaking that taboo normalizes nuclear weapons and invites a global apocalypse.
But even returning to the escalation ladder, remember the iron rule. You cannot skip steps.
We are at step 4. Nukes are step 7.
But why can't a leader just say, forget the ladder, I'm pressing the button? What actually stops them?
Every weapon used requires justification. If you skip steps, you fail to justify the action across 4 distinct dimensions.
Let's break those down. Dimension 1.
Troop morale. Your own soldiers must believe their cause is just. If you bypass conventional escalation and instantly vaporize millions of civilians, it destroys the morale of your own military. They won't fight for a command they view as monstrous.
Dimension 2.
Public opinion. The world must support you, or at least tolerate you. Skip to step 7, and you instantly become a global pariah. Total economic isolation follows immediately.
Dimension 3. Political will.
Domestic unity. A sudden, unprovoked nuclear strike would shatter the political administration at home. You'd face catastrophic domestic unrest.
And the final dimension, enemy morale.
You want to break the enemy's will without provoking a suicidal frenzy. If you launch a nuke, the enemy realizes total annihilation is imminent. They had nothing left to lose. They will unleash every chemical, biological, and asymmetric horror they possess. Total chaos.
So skipping to nukes destroys your own military, turns the world against you, collapses your government, and guarantees an apocalyptic response.
Exactly. But there is also a secret motive here, specifically regarding Israel.
A secret motive.
Israel actually doesn't want a quick end to this war. A nuclear strike would end it instantly. But the data suggests they want a long war. They want to trap America in a Middle Eastern quagmire, permanently tethering U.S. forces to the region's security.
Wow. We are definitely going to unpack that in the next deep dive. But for now, let's summarize the board based on everything the first 10 days have shown us.
The totality of it is clear. The U.S. is stuck at step 4, facing massive political pushback for hitting civilian infrastructure. The air-only campaign is failing, just as it always does historically.
While Iran is executing perfectly, the strait is closed, the Gulf states are squeezed, and Iran maintains escalation control through selective calibration.
And the inverted cost pyramid is bankrupting the U.S., burning million-dollar interceptors on cheap drones, which triggers mission creep.
Just like Vietnam.
Exactly like Vietnam. You send 1,000 troops for a small mission, it fails. You send 2,000, then 5,000, then 50,000. That exact historical pattern is forming right now.
So the final verdict. Ground troops are coming, nukes are not. Control beats dominance. And the world after this war will never look like the world before it.
That is the reality of the map.
So we've covered incredible ground in this 8th deep dive. You now have the tools, the escalation ladder, the bully analogy, and the cost pyramid.
Tools that let you see through the noise.
Exactly, but the map is still unfolding. And I want to tease our next deep dive number 9, because it is mind-blowing.
It really is. We're going to explain why Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iran all secretly want America to lose this war for completely different reasons.
That is going to fundamentally change how you view these alliances. You won't want to miss it. But before we go, a quick reminder. We are completely independent, no sponsors, no corporate backing, no hidden agendas.
We just verify the data and bring it to you. So please, support the show at buymeacoffee.com, Men of the World.
And when you become a member, you get perks. Early access to the audio, but more importantly, exclusive regional breakdowns.
Right. How does this war specifically affect your part of the world? What does the Strait of Hormuz closing mean for your energy bills, your currency, your daily cost of living?
The deep dive gives you the big picture. The membership tells you what it actually means for your life, your money, and your family.
Join us at buymeacoffee.com and of the world.
And remember, you can also find our audio on YouTube. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and support the work. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to turn over in your mind today.
Go for it.
We talked a lot about the bully. If control truly beats dominance in a theater of war, where else in your own life are you currently mistaking size for power? Keep questioning the narrative. We'll see you in the next one.